Slightly above average gamers, way above average podcast. Welcome to the Slightly Above Average Gaming Podcast with your hosts, J007tv and SuboneKD.
Welcome to episode 30 of the Slightly Above Average Gaming Podcast. I am J007tv, and as always, I'm joined by the homie SuboneKD. What's up, man?
What's going on, buddy? Same old, same old. Trying to get spring going on the ranch.
Sounds more like winter there.
Yeah, it's frigid this week. I don't know why. Yeah, of course, we resupply our chicks and all the other birds of a kind we have floating around the place, and then it drops to like 34, and like 3 of them die overnight. It's awesome. Having a good time.
That's terrible.
Yeah,
that is terrible.
You go through them.
Yep.
Part of life on the big open expanse.
Well, listen, a lot of people probably don't know this, but I grew up on 163 acres. We had 9 stock tanks. There were cows on our property. We had pigs, horses, dogs, that kind of stuff. And I mean, that's just, unfortunately, when you live on a ranch or a farm, that's just a part of it and a fact of life, I guess. It was really a culture shock for my wife because, like, we'd see dogs get hit in the road, or, one of our dogs would die. Not so much our dogs, actually. That's not true. But, like, we'd see dogs in the road or whatever, and I'd just be like, it's just a part of life. And she, like, couldn't understand why I had, like, little to no empathy for it. I just was used to, you go out and you find a dead heifer, that's been there for a couple days.
Yeah.
You get kind of numb to that stuff.
Yep. I hear you. But enough on that one. The otherwise, it's been good. Kids have been on spring break, so the week's been packed. I did something this week that I've talked about a little bit. Joined the PC Master Race.
Yep.
So no more easy Xbox lobbies. That's an unfortunate side effect.
That's actually a real thing. Oh yeah. At least I know it is in Apex, because some of the people I know people that play on like console and then people that play on PC, and it's like, oh well, I got Masters level, and they're like, well, are you on console or PC? I'm on console. Oh,
yeah.
So evidently they separate.
You can see it on multiplayer pretty clearly. If you log in with an Xbox, most of the time your lobbies will be Xbox and PlayStation, with like 1 or 2 PC players thrown in on like probably every 5th or 6th match. And then every now and again you get tossed into a lobby that's all PC players, and then you're just going to get spanked all the way from one end of the map to the other. But really the difference is quite noticeable. So there's console definitely grabs the lower end skill brackets and like holds that more than PC does. So you get into a PC lobby and the sweatiness is ratcheted up for sure.
Shit, I might need to go jack my kid's console and play on that for a little while just to get back on track. Holy hell. So you got your first week on PC. So what are your first impressions of season 3? And you started it on PC, so
yeah. First impressions, scan and repair.
Yep.
Downloading shaders.
Yep.
Re-downloading shaders.
Yep.
Crashing.
Pretty much. Yeah.
But get through all that. Actually, it's running fairly well. The season is not bad. Not as bad as it could have been. Well, I'll put it this way. If you're playing the mode that they want you to play, that they built the season around, which we'll get to that in a minute, then the season is actually quite nice. It's well populated. The lobbies are... SBMM is a thing, but it's not as bad as it could be. Maybe has something to do with the... with something we'll talk about a little later with some of our favorite... what do you say? Extra software providers.
Very interesting. Okay. Okay.
And so it's Yeah, the last couple nights haven't been so bad. The first night was a little rough. Part of that, I think, was me adjusting to PC. I'll tell you one thing. As a console player who has only played 1 or 2 matches on PC, and that was on my old man's rig, just messing around, like not taking it seriously. And on mouse and keyboard because you didn't have a controller. So I just low expectations of like performance. There is a huge difference between this game on PC and this game on console. Like the difference is massive. And I don't know how clearly I can state that. Everything moves faster. Like your sensitivity, it has to be geared completely different. So on console, I was running an 1111 sensitivity. And when I switched to PC, I've cut that down to 6. I'm now a 6 player, and I will probably work on getting that up. But it was like at 1111, I couldn't control anything. Like I copied the same settings, and it was like I was all over the place. So I don't know how or why, but everything moves faster on console. I mean, on PC than even, I mean, I was playing on an Xbox Series X. Like that's top tier console.
It's as close to a PC as you're going to get on a console.
Yeah. And it's just not, and I'm not playing on a 65-inch TV. I'm playing 1440 on a 165 hertz PC, gaming monitor that is honestly being held back by the hardware. 1440 to 120 hertz. It's not like I'm playing, with my feet up on the couch on the TV, right? So the fact that the difference is so severe reiterates that console and PC should not naturally be coexisting. Like it should be, the default should be console plays together and PC plays together.
Right.
Because, and I haven't even delved into really fine-tuning keybinds and kind of doing all the little technical tweaks that I can do. Because there's stuff like, for example, I'll give you an example. Drop shotting, right? If you just play on console and on controller, you can't directly drop shot. I don't know if you know that. There's no prone. There's no standing to prone option. It's the hold to prone. And what it does is it transition, because the mechanic is change stance. It's slide/change stance. So if you tap the button and you're standing still, it will crouch, and then you tap it again and it will prone. Or if you hold it, it'll crouch prone. But there's no standing prone. That's actually dedicated to mouse and keyboard. Now, if you're playing on PC, you can use something like DS4 Windows to remap your buttons and create a button to go standing prone, because that's an option on mouse and keyboard. And this game allows you to do hybrid, so you can have all your keybinds up and running, and then it adds the ability to so you have all your keybinds, and then you can have controller aiming, so you get aim assist. So you can have, in a lot of ways, the best of both worlds, but the problem is you can't, the buttons are what they are. So if you use something like DS4 Windows, you can create remap one of the buttons to be to drop shot. Basically, you can have a 1-button drop shot, which is faster. And the problem with being on controller is, controller only, is when you drop shot, right? It does the crouch prone animation. It does it very quickly compared to like tapping it, but it still puts your head right in the crosshairs. Like when you crouch, your head is right in the crosshairs of somebody well centered. And so it's kind of things like that are a huge advantage. of PC. That it flies under the radar for most people. Most people are used to it, but when you run into somebody who's got it set up right, like there's no way around the challenge of facing a PC player on a console. So it's good to be on the other side.
Yeah.
For some of this.
Speaking of drop shot, that's one of the things that I'm trying to figure out how. So I never used to drop shot, and then I don't know. I finally got to a point where I got tired of it happening to me all the time. So I'm like, all right, screw it. I'm gonna practice it. So I did practice it. I put that as part of my practice routine and something that I routinely did. And I finally got to where I could do it while I was on controller. And now that I'm on mouse and key, it's not as smooth. And maybe it is just a setting that I need to go look at to where I can just instantly do it. But you're right. It does go from standing to crouching to, it's not a fluid movement, basically.
Go back through your keybinds and you'll find a keybind for prone. So instead of it being change stance, it'll just be prone.
Yeah.
And okay. So here's the fun part about drop shotting is that actually it is the only movement that rotational aim assist doesn't track. So if somebody's locked onto your head, right? Like, and you jump or you run,
right?
It'll track you back and forth, right? And it'll track you jumping,
but not up and down.
Drop shot, it doesn't track.
Interesting.
So it's one of those things of like that's why it's effective. But if you anticipate it, and especially if they're on the crouch prone and you have that split second to pick it up, you can then you can laterally move and stay on target. And it becomes, it's one of those risk reward. If you catch them by surprise, you can get the kill. If you don't catch, like if they anticipate you or they pick it up that you're doing it, RIP you.
Right. So, did you get to play any of the multiplayer yet for season 3 at all?
I have played a little bit. It's a free weekend. I'm trying to decide how I'm going to deal with the fact that I don't have the full game on Steam. Owned on Steam.
Why don't you have BattleNet?
Because BattleNet crashes my Ethernet card.
Really?
Yep.
Interesting.
Well, just absolutely I don't know why. I try to install it and I'm getting 56K speeds. I'm not even joking.
Oh wow. Well,
so
I did play the multiplayer. I got to play it the last couple days, and more so yesterday than the day before, than Wednesday. But that map, that Grow House map, I like that map a lot. Like it's really neat. I mean, it's 3 lanes, but then there's like lower levels to go into as well underneath the house, which are really cool. And yeah, it was. It was a fun match running on that map. And then the map tanked where they basically broke up part of Vondel. I've gotten to run that one.
Right.
Those are the main
aquarium.
the main 2 that I've gotten to run. Trying to get used to that one a little bit because it plays different. You're going to play it different on multi than when we were there in the BR. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
Like with the spawns and stuff like that. So, yeah, I think that season 3 is a big dub for multiplayer for sure. Like they did a lot. There's 4 maps.
A lot of
new
maps. Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of new maps. A lot of good. There's new guns. There's new features, new modes. So multi did great.
Yeah, we're going to talk about the weapons a little bit later. Actually, we may as well talk about those now because I'm not running those in BR. I've only run them in multiplayer. Have you unlocked the Horus yet?
I have them both unlocked. I have not. I have dabbled in the Horus and I couldn't hit anything, and I don't know if that was just me having a bad day or what. Because day 1 I had a terrible day, absolutely miserable game. But the last 2 days have actually been pretty decent. But I feel like with snipers, you have to spend a lot of time learning it and like really internalizing what the bullet drop and how the velocity works, so you can lead your targets by instinct rather than trying to guesstimate.
Well, and I don't run. I typically only run my snipers on specific maps. Like I won't run a sniper on meat if that comes up in the rotation, or hotel, or whatever. There's about 3 or 4 maps that I will run my sniper on. And I will actually, if I'm really trying to rank it up fast, I will go to shipment and try to snipe with it a little bit. And that works sometimes. But overall, I don't really like Wasteland, Afghan. Those are the 2 big ones for sniping that I'll snipe on. Overgrown sometimes, or I'm sorry, Underpass. It's Underpass, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and Underpass. Those are the 3 big ones that I will snipe on.
You know what's underrated for sniping?
What?
Rust.
Really?
Mm-hmm. You don't put a long. You put a like the Eagle Eye or like a 2x 2.5x optic on it. And you can sit back in the corners and just pick people off as they move around. So there's a couple of really, really gross lanes that you can get, and of course if you get up on the top,
if you can make it up there and stay up there, you can eat for sure.
But like I've sat behind the truck, so like on the map, like the bottom left of the map, there's that tanker truck or whatever. I've sat back there and bugged the tower. Bugged you can get 2 corners. From there, you can pin down 2 corners and fight the tower with a sniper, and be successful. The other side, that little corner, so there's the opposite corner on that same bottom end of the map, right? You can sit. It's kind of like there's that tube to go through at the midpoint of the map, right? But you can sit kind of up there, and you can watch the A flag, and so you can watch the A flag, and especially in domination, you get a lot of people come in. And they'll try and get the flag, and they're just sitting there waiting to get their heads clicked.
Yeah.
So
I've run the Moors sniper rifle. I run it a couple matches. The first match I did okay with it. The second match was a complete trash can with it for whatever reason. So I haven't really done much ranking with it. But that Horus, I did rank that up. I ranked that up yesterday in about an hour and a half or so. I ended up going to hardcore and running small maps, and it was pretty quick, especially with double weapon XP plus your decoy grenades and everything else. So, I ranked it up fast. I don't know how that gun is going to play in core, because I don't play hardcore typically anymore. I don't like to. I'm a core player, so I guess really today, well, I'm probably not going to run any multiplayer today. It's more than likely I won't. Maybe tomorrow, but I'll run it out there then. But I'm curious, like, if at some point that weapon's going to have viability in Warzone.
We'll see. They've lately been introducing guns that aren't quite meta, but they get there eventually. So
yeah, like the Subverter.
Nice.
Basically meta right now for AR battle rifle kind of thing, and it's okay. So we're talking about weapons right now, right? So we've only gotten 2 weapons. There's a third one that's coming probably middle of the season 3 Reloaded. That'll Reloaded. Be an AR. Cool. Did you see that data miners found the Car 98?
And they released that information on April Fool's, but it turns out, I believe, to be true. Yes, I did.
Yep.
So, well, let's be honest. Call of Duty because remember at the start when they were announcing Rebirth Island, they went back to big creators and they liked certain tweets from like years ago. They went and they liked somebody's Car 98 montage on Rebirth Island from a year and change ago. And so that was kind of like a clue I think a lot of people took on.
Yeah.
So
that'd be dope if they bring it back. I would have preferred the Swiss K31, but that's okay. It doesn't matter though. Really, if it's not going to be viable in the big map, I don't really know that I really care that much, because I mean, I'm going to play some Resurgence, but I'm not going to, I'd rather play the big map. So if I can't snipe on the big map with it, I guess it really doesn't matter to me that much.
Yeah. It's one of those, I think it's one of those things where, so I missed the Car 98 meta. I could never, and I'll tell you what part of it was, is the default optic, that triangle sight.
Mm-hmm.
I hate it. I hate it. I can't use it. It doesn't make sense to me. So I never got into it, even when I got into sniping, and then they nerfed it into oblivion. So I had minimal experience, you know. So my memories of the Car 98 is being on the other side of it and swearing about it and wishing bad things upon everybody who uses it. It's in my eyes, so sorry if I'm sorry on YouTube if you're watching. I keep poking my face, but the gun is, you know, the ideal like mobility sniper, right? Like, so you can run. It had like a 300 and something millisecond ADS time, so you could actually take it into a fight and have a not negative experience versus like the Cat AMR, for example, where it's got like, you know, it's a 6-day ADS time.
Yeah, it's like 5 million milliseconds to AES. But yeah, I think that you know, the car was cool. I had issue with it at some points too. My biggest issue is I didn't like the idea that I could get sniped in the head, and before my body hits the ground, I can't even move. I'm already cleaned up. Like the firing rate, the fire rate on it was,
yeah, it was quick.
And that's where, like, you know, when we've talked about the sniping before, that's like I've said, they should have, if they didn't have to screw with the damage and set these bullshit like 43 meter max, like one shot headshot kills, they could have nerfed the fire rate, the ADS time, the muzzle sway, those kind of things. They could have made adjustments to that, to where that gun was not quite as broken or as powerful as it was. But you know, again, mainly the people using that were higher skilled players anyway.
Well, you know, it was a marksman rifle and it still had rotational aim assist.
Yeah, it shouldn't have had that. You shouldn't.
Yeah. So
see, the Swiss K31 was a sniper rifle, and it did not.
Correct. So, you know, it's one of those things of like, I think the Car 98, where that benefited the Car 98 was you could take it very aggressively and you would get that benefit.
Well,
so
the
like
hit scan too.
Yeah, especially the early days. So definitely one of those. Definitely interesting to see that coming back and how they'll play it. I mean, let's be honest. There's a high risk. You know, there's a not zero chance that it's going to actually be kind of miserable.
Yeah, I mean, it might be dog water. I don't know. For whatever reason, Call of Duty has all of a sudden in the last 3 years decided they don't want sniping to be a thing that much for some reason. Well, I mean, it's true. I mean, in multiplayer, sniping is good. Like, I have no complaints with the sniping in the multiplayer, but in the BR and the resurgence aspect of it, it's not great.
Yeah, I mean, it's really, you're running the stalker. That's what you're running.
Well, so funny you mentioned that. And I know we're going to get into both Resurgence and Urzikstan, but so the day I ran Rebirth, I was running the Stalker, you know, the no stock build. I use the FTAC Delta sight. I like it because of the red dots. It's kind of a little bit cleaner sight picture for me. I use that, and I did snipe a couple people. In fact, I think one game I had 5 kills, and I think all 5 of them were sniper kills. You know, so that was awesome. But then last night, I was trying to change my class off of that because I was in Urzikstan and back to the AMR, and I didn't get to do that. It didn't switch. So here I am. I'm sniping half the map. I'm like, what the fuck? I'm not hitting anything. Like, I feel like this like drop at like such a distance. Like, I'm not able to hit any shots, that kind of thing. And then I look over and I'm like, oh, I'm using the no stock stalker build. You know, so I think that the Stalker is definitely a resurgence sniper rifle, and the Cat is still king on Urzikstan.
See, I'll take it out on Urzikstan and have just. I don't use the no stock build though. It puts too much sway on it for me, and I missed too many shots because the reticle's like figure eighting and like doing all that random shit. Which I do like the change that they've made with aiming idle sway, or firing sway now, because aiming idle sway is gone. It's not gone; it's still in snipers, but the idle sway changes they've made to make it more consistent, I think is a big benefit. I think it helps everybody. I mean, it helps the really good players more in some ways. And this is something that it's taken me a while to wrap my head around, and why it's important. I mean, look, soapbox time. There's a reason that good players are good players, right? They know the mechanics and they understand what the mechanics do and how they work. Good players have a habit of forgetting how not good players play the game. Okay? And so they push for things that increase their abilities. But it doesn't mean that the things that they ask for always hinder bad players. It's just we don't, not me, but me right now, but everybody doesn't know how they're using it, but it doesn't mean it doesn't help them. All right. And it's one of those things where, like, for example, aim assist, we'll talk about this maybe later, but in detail, but like aim assist, the way it works right now, look, not everybody is going to be flying around and just beaming like Caps Lock does. Okay. He is very masterful on what on how he plays the game and how he uses aim assist. It doesn't mean if you're a bad player that aim assist doesn't do that for you. You just don't notice it. And it helps you when you don't notice it, even if you don't realize it's there.
So I don't have aim assist, obviously. I'm I'm on mouse and key. But
yes, the Excel spreadsheets are
so I'll see
flying.
People like dropping down, right? And I'm like, oh, I'm about to like beam these dudes out of the sky, just like I see like everybody do it. And I'm like, like all over the fucking place. And I'm like, what the fuck? I'm on mouse and key. I'm not even doing anything. I'm legit like holding the mouse. Like, I don't understand. Like it, and I'm like fucking aim assist. Like it just never works for me, even when I'm on mouse and key. I know I'm not supposed to have it, but I can't hold. Yeah. Like I still can't hit shit. So I'm just a trash can, I guess.
I mean, the tracking and everything is there, but it's like, so in probably a more direct example is if you're fighting somebody in fairly close range, right? Like maybe 10 meters out. The ability for you, even if you stop, the ability for them to track or for you to track them as they move laterally in front of you, like aim assist is helping you, and it's helping you stay on target. And that's one of those things that people say, my aim assist doesn't do that. And the reality is it does, and it's doing it. You just don't notice it because you're also moving the sticks, right?
And people overcompensate too. So it's really,
yeah.
But
it's one of those things that, like, if you're a good player, right? Yeah, you want mechanics that you can use and abuse to help your game. But most of these mechanics that we get, that people do abuse, that we see extreme examples of, and we're like, oh my gosh, this is terrible. Right? Like, why is this in the game? But we don't realize that 87% of the player base, right? They benefit from it and don't realize it. They don't recognize when it's benefiting them versus when it's not. And that, I think, is the important thing that we have to figure out how to express, right? Like, you got a kill and aim assist helped you, for example, versus you didn't get the kill and aim assist actually could have helped you, but your sensitivity is too high. Okay. And so I think we need to take a moment, like we need to find a way to look at a lot of these things and view them as a average player or a below average player would view them, and understand how to explain how this is helping. This is how it helps you even when you think it doesn't. I think that's the biggest problem that we've got, to be honest.
And it's funny that you say that, average players versus good players or high tier players, because we're going to get into a topic a little bit later that basically has good players pitted against bad players on social media. It's fucking blood sport out there right now.
Mm-hmm.
But in any case, so back to season 3.
Yeah.
Multiplayer, I think it's a dub. Um, Resurgence and Rebirth. I only got to play on. I played Rebirth on the first day. So what was it? That would have been Wednesday. So in my first 5 matches, I had a 5th place, a 3rd place, a 2nd place, a win, and a win. So a back to back win, and overall the kills were great. On the night, I think I had like 2 just trash can matches, but for the most part, I think I was even or above. So all in all, I had a good time on Rebirth. It played just like I remember, as far as like just some of the POIs and things like that. It was good.
Generally, so we all saw what happened to Fortune's Keep and the changes that they made to Fortune's Keep. And I think there was a mixed bag of changes. Some things were good. There's a giant fissure through the middle of it that collapsed my favorite opening POI, small hole, and kind of made a mess of that, which ticks me off a little bit because that was my little spot that nobody ever went to. But a lot of people aren't super thrilled with the changes they've made for various reasons, which I think is a perfectly acceptable feeling to have. But the rebirth that we got actually is very, very much in line with how we left it. So this will be our 4th iteration of Rebirth Island on Warzone. I think 6th total, right? There was a zombies back in the day, and then Alcatraz on Blackout.
Yep.
So 6th version of this map, 4th in Warzone. And I think they did a good job of keeping it very, very true to how it played and what made Warzone good. I think the problems of Warzone and Resurgence are still there and always exemplified on this map for various reasons. But, I'll give Sledge tons of credit for everything they did to modernize the map, but not ruin it. I am impressed with a lot of the lighting changes. They changed control. They redecorated a lot of the areas. I think the only place that I've come across that's actually a negative, that's actually worse than it was before, is the basement in Control Center, or not Control Center, in it's right next to Bio. Control. No.
I forget what it's called. I think they changed the name of that POI. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. There's a little shower Easter egg, which is back, which is great. You get the key card and you go to Stronghold. So, but that basement, they've knocked out the overhead lights, and they've put lights, like stand shop lights, in the corners. So now it's dark, it's dingy. It's the only place on the map that's dark, dingy, and has terrible light. Like, you can't see anybody down there. You get somebody in a rose skin down there, like, you'll never see them because they'll just stand right next to the light, and if you're looking at them, all you see is the light. Ask me how many times I've died to that.
How many?
3. And I know they're down there, but you jump down there and you look around and you can't see anything. So that's become kind of a tough place to fight. Other than that, changes have been positive. The repaint and the reskin of a lot of the POIs looks great. The rest of that building looks amazing. They really did a good job of brightening it and making it kind of, making it visually interesting, right? Positives all around, I think, on that. They did not put a giant fissure down the middle of the island, even though they added some water plays. They added that new building. We'll get to what you're thinking of right there in a minute. But they added that new building. Was it building 6 or something? Which is like a pump house, which can't be accessed directly without going into it through the skylight first.
Oh,
so the doors are locked. I think there's a key. There might be a key card to open it, but the doors will be locked until you come in and you go out. And then, but there's a water egg. Like there's a little pipe underground in there, so you can drop down a hole and swim out and there's actually 3 different outlets, so you can kind of get away. So it's a good use of what was otherwise an empty spot on the map. They used to put a buy station there, I think, sometimes, and so there was something to do there, but it wasn't really worth going to. So they've improved that. I'll give them credit for that. They did a good job on it, I think. And yeah, the map just plays well. I think the problem with that map, right, with Rebirth right now, is that it runs into some of the mechanics left over from Warzone 2 and some of the play styles that are growing increasingly controversial.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about that here in a little bit, in detail, actually. I enjoyed my experience on Rebirth. I didn't think I would, and the reason I guess it's different to me because I expect all the respawns in Resurgence. Like if you're actually playing Resurgence, I expect that. That's fine. That's part of it. I chose to play that mode, so I can't bitch about dying 18 times. It was just a good experience for me when I played. So I'm hoping. In fact, I'm supposed to play again with somebody one of the KLG guys here in a little while. So I'm looking forward to that. And yeah, I think that Rebirth is a win right now. We only ran into one sweatbag team because like you have some of those matches on that map, and really just Resurgence in general, where you have the same team griefing you over and over again, and they wipe you like 4 times. Yeah, that happened to us one match. But I mean, for the most part, it felt like the skill part of the match. It was fairly even. It was nice, man. Like it was a fun experience. I had a great time on it.
I have had a mixed bag. I ran into a top 250 squad, like legit top 250, not grief their way in, and in multiplayer as well. Got absolutely trash canned on. So that was fun. And I feel bad because there was a full on cheater in that lobby. This was right before the ban wave hit, and that team was dogging us the entire damn game, and then they got wiped. I think what happened is they got third partied and wiped by this top 250 team, and then they immediately set on us and knocked us out for the win.
Sure.
And we didn't realize that switch had happened, so we all mouthed off to the guy that killed us, and then realized it's not the same team, and that person actually is legit. So
that's how it goes. I'm trying to find.
If you have my spicy comms, I apologize.
Yeah, right. I'm trying to find the notes because there was something that I feel like we should mention, both for Resurgence and for the big map. The new XP formula that they're giving out for landing on your teammates and landing where you mark and those kind of things. Are you familiar with that?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's actually pretty cool. It'll help with weapon leveling, especially for those who don't have multiplayer.
Yeah, weapon leveling will be a thing, but I don't know. I think it's one of those things where let's shelve this conversation. Let's segue. Let's shelve this for a minute. Because I know we want to talk about some stuff with Urzikstan before we get into stuff. So let's put that off for a minute.
Well, and there's not really a lot to talk about Urzikstan. They didn't really do a whole lot,
which I think is what we should talk about.
Yeah. Well, I think it's great that I'm starting to see more and more of the larger creators that like Breadman, Repulse, Lucci, those type of guys are coming out and talking about the fact, Iceman Isaac, the fact, Brax, the fact that there has been little done to Urzikstan or Big Map BR. They're also saying the same thing that has been documented by both of us as saying that there's no differentiation between BR and Resurgence, and there's all the 6 or 8 ways to come back. Like, I think that's great that those guys are starting to put pressure on Raven hopefully make some changes, man. Like, what I don't understand is why does it have to be one or the other? Like, I'm totally cool with the Resurgence dudes getting some love and them, putting some, assets and effort into Resurgence, but just don't do it at the expense of the other mode, and vice versa. Like, why?
So, all right, I'm gonna tell you what's going on from Raven's point of view, and what they're reacting to, and then we can dig into why that may or may not be the best choice. So, Raven is. Give me a minute. Let me soapbox for a minute. Raven is understanding, and this is something that anybody who played not Caldera, anybody who played Verdansk for any length of time, especially if you filled or you took on randos to play, right? So you had 3 and you took on for quads or whatever. The number of players who quit out when they die is an excessively high number. And that used to be a big point of contention. If you remember, back in the day, that was a big complaint. Stupid rando quits out, right? Just because the second he lost his gulag, right? They're not playing the match. And that's been a trend for as long as I can remember. And where that trend kind of started to die is in Caldera, when they started adding more mechanics to come back. And then in Al Mazrah, they added a lot of ways to come back in BR. And on the surface, at first glance, it seems like that's a good idea. And I guarantee their numbers indicated a positive retention in games. Because here's what happens, right? You die, or somebody on your team dies, rando dies. They lose their gulag and they quit out. Now you're trios quads. If you die, if they die kind of late circle, your ability to buy them back is gone because they're not in the game anymore. And so it's a negative experience all around, right? You're playing shorthanded, even when you have the ability to not play shorthanded. You're forced to play shorthanded. And on top of that, the players that are quitting out, right? They're doing this on repeat, so they're always searching for a game, right? So they're kind of messing with the flow too. By giving them more ways to come back, those players stay in the game more because maybe they redeploy, maybe they have an extra gulag token. There are more flares around, so they can be flared back in more quickly. So there's a distinctive like advantage to bringing people back in from a developer's point of view. Okay, that's what they're looking at. How do we get people to play the full game until they get team wiped out? The reality is it stops being a BR at a certain point. Right? Like, you hit the tipping point, and it's the same thing with Resurgence. People don't quit out of Resurgence matches, right? They stick around because they come back in 30 seconds. And so they're trying to keep the retention in BR the same way they keep it in Resurgence. And that's a problem because it's messing with our ability to actually have a battle royale of any sort, right? We just have 2 Resurgence games at this point.
Are they doing is that doing the opposite though? And
What do you
also
mean?
too, first let me ask you this. How many of those people left because maybe they didn't want to be bought back? So they're like, fuck this. I'll go ahead and just leave, and I don't have to be bought back 18 times. So how many people leave because of that? And is that effect, which I get what you're saying, maybe they're looking at that. We talked last episode about them, evaluating the data and things like that. But is that having an opposite effect, meaning you're driving people away from the BR?
Well, good question. I don't have their data, so I don't know. I can tell you that I am being driven away from the BR because I don't want to be bought back into a game mode that's not designed to regain repeatedly, especially late. And when you're getting blundered, you're getting blundered.
Yeah.
But I don't know what they're seeing on positive responses, but I'm going to compare and contrast this to Warzone Mobile because this is the best A/B. Look, I don't care what you have to say about the graphics. The gameplay loop between Warzone Mobile and the old Verdansk, right? The thing that in our heads we're all comparing to, the gameplay loop is the same. All right. the graphics, the mechanics, the move, whatever. Like that's all irrelevant to the loop itself. And so now we can so the gameplay loop. If you look at the gameplay loop of Warzone Mobile and you compare it to the gameplay loop of Urzikstan, okay, it is a night and day difference. And I'll tell you one thing: people quit out all the time. Like I will solo queue in, I'll have a full quad or a trio. Someone dies, they sit in the gulag, they give it maybe 35 seconds to a minute. They watch to see if we're rushing to a buy station to buy them. And if we're, and like they'll ping the buy station incessantly, and then they quit out. And it's like, I've literally like, as I'm buying them back, they're quitting out. Like they just have no patience for it.
Fucking ADHD. God damn.
Yeah, exactly. So it is a thing, right? It's not like Raven made this up the last time they talked about it. But that being said, what we have now, I think, is far more detrimental to the mobile experience in terms of the gameplay loop. Because with all the buybacks, you are perpetually either being farmed, like you do in Resurgence, or you get to the end game in Urzikstan, and there's like 4 full teams in the final circle. And then like 1 or 2 like, bush monkeys who've just kind of camped their way there. Right? And the endings are just there's no flow to it. It's just whoever has the best position wins the game. Okay? Which when teams are not full at endgame, then it's about who the better players are. The better players will stand out more because you can overcome somebody in a good position. If you're a trio, right? And you have one guy holding high ground, as long as that high ground isn't insurmountable, you can maneuver, and the 3 of you can come from different angles, and it's nearly impossible to hold somebody off, right? When they're coming at you from 3 different angles, and you get crushed, right? But if it's a full team on top, and they're holding all the angles, then your full team is screwed. Just you just say equal skill, right? Equally skilled players. The team with the high ground wins.
Every time? Well, almost every time.
Yeah. But if it's a solo against 3 equally skilled players on a team, that solo is going to probably lose, right? Because they might get 1 or 2, but it's hard to knock 3 players coming from 3 different directions. And that's an experience you don't run into as often, if at all anymore, in Urzikstan, because Urzikstan has so many ways to bring your people back. Buybacks are cheap. There's redeploys. There's flares. There's so many different ways to get somebody back in. And a lot of them are 0 risk. Flares are 0 risk. Redeploy tokens are 0 risk. Extra gulags are 0 risk, right? Your teammates don't have to do anything to get you back. Versus in the mobile game loop, the old BR game loop, where you had to run to a buy station with $4,000 and buy your teammate back while you're a sitting duck, and somebody with a sniper rifle can be just waiting to click your head when you get there. Compare that to just jumping out a window, popping a flare, and running back inside your building.
I'd rather have the way it was in Verdansk, to be completely honest. And also part of it too, think about this. So all these ways to come back, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then you factor in the matchmaking, and it's a perfect storm. It legitimately is, because I don't know if people know this or not, but this matchmaking doesn't feel very fucking forgiving to me. I have one bad night. Guess what? I don't get an easy night the next night because I had a bad night the night before. A lot of times it's just constant bad nights. And yeah, people are going to be like, oh, well, you're trash. That's not true, dude. Historically, I'm over a 1 KD in all of the Call of Duty BRs up to this point. Now, granted, we're only 4 months in on this one, so whatever.
It's not going to get better.
I mean,
right?
It might.
From here on out, it's not going to get better.
If
right?
I grind it, I
Because
think I can get it
the
up there.
bad players are going to start leaving.
Yeah, but why? Because they're in a blender,
Because,
they come back 18 times and they're farmed by dudes?
they have no fun, right? They don't have the fun, right? It's only the addicts that stay.
Yeah, and I'm just a grinder, like I said. You and I both have talked about this. We want to improve and get better, and I'm stubborn as hell, and I'm not going to let this game beat me. That's the only reason why I'm still here.
The game loves you for it. The SBM loves you for that.
Oh,
too,
yeah, of course they do. And then I buy the fucking black cell, so that's cool too.
Hey, this black cell is actually, you know what? This black cell is actually kind of fun.
Oh, it is. It's good. They've got some
nice
really
to get away
cool
from
variants.
The zombie look too. I'm enjoying that. But yeah, look, there are people who enjoy the resurgence, right? And I don't want to take away from that because resurgence can be a lot of fun.
No, it's a great mode.
But I think we need a bigger separation between the two. And you know what? At the end of the day, the loop, what made Verdansk fun was the gameplay loop. It wasn't the graphics. It wasn't the advanced movement because that wasn't discovered until partway through, like the first year. Okay? What made Verdansk fun was the way the gameplay loop worked, right? It was a slight improvement over other BRs. Okay, they were the first ones to have second chance, to have the gulag. They were the first ones to be able to buy someone back, right? Like to have loadouts. Those things are fun to have. They're good to have, and they're a good part of a BR experience, right? Like you go into Fortnite and they've added key cards. They've added ways to come back, right? You look at Apex, they've added things, okay? Everybody's adding a way to come back because it's so successful in Warzone. But Warzone is taking it too far. And that's why I think when you look at the BR experience, like the gameplay loop experience on Warzone Mobile, and you compare it apples to the gameplay loop experience on Urzikstan, mobile is better because it's all the good parts of BR without all the stuff they've added. Do I wish it looked great? Do I wish I could experience this on the PC or on my Xbox? Absolutely. Am I disappointed in the graphics? No, because I expected it to be a mobile game. It's better than I expected it to be honest. But the experience of BR, if you want to play Warzone, like the Warzone you remember, you should be on mobile. Like it's just how it should be. It's so much better versus Urzikstan right now.
I just thought about something, and I know this might be an unpopular opinion. You know how I'd be okay with all these buybacks?
How?
If after the first circle you come back with your full loadout with 60 rounds for each weapon. I mean, fuck it. We're already blurring the lines of BR anyway.
I mean, can we just not?
I'd rather not. Look, but if I'm going to come back, I want to have a fighting chance rather than, like you've said several times, dude. And I agree with you. The regain is almost non-existent, dude. It really is.
No. And you know what? Look. The ground loot right now, everyone says it's dog shit. It's actually fun first circle, early game. Okay? It's a fun set of ground loot. There's a lot of guns that are, I think, slept on that are worth running.
They went
There's
back
a lot
to
of
Modern
options.
Warfare 2 also. I don't know if you noticed that.
Well, there's a couple of Modern Warfare 2 guns that are actually very, very competitive right now.
The AK and the M4 are there. Those are the two that I remember.
And the Geist, which is on the ground.
Okay.
Kills faster than the Ram 7 inside 20 meters.
Wow.
Don't know if you know that. But here's the thing. As soon as loadouts are in, the ground loot doesn't stand up.
No, it doesn't.
So early game, the ground loot is fun, but you get deeper into it, the regain becomes very difficult because the ground loot is not competitive enough to the meta right now, to what is meta. So there needs to be a better way to deal with that. And I don't know what that is going to be, but there's got to be a better way to handle it, right? So like, but look, you know what? We got some modes coming down, so this is something else coming in season. We have modes that are basically turning Rebirth Island into multiplayer with shields.
Jesus.
All right, lockdown is coming. which is great. I enjoy that mode. I think it's a lot of fun. But they're also adding a lockdown-esque mode that doesn't even have the flags. Like it's just team deathmatch with 11 teams instead of 2.
Which I don't have a problem with the extra modes, because if you look at both Apex and Fortnite, they both do that too. Hell, Fortnite's even got racing. I don't know if you know that or not.
They have a Lego mode too.
Yeah, and you know what? That's cool. But you know what? They're not forcing people to play that. B, their core game modes with their build and no build, which by the way, I love the fact that they did that. They recognized that, you know what, this building is way sweaty and there are people who just aren't going to play this game simply because of that. So let's make a no build mode. And you know what? That no build mode is fun as hell.
I refuse to play build. I think
I'm not playing build.
Look, for me, it's a terrible experience. And maybe if I play it on mouse and key, and I really devote time to practice, I could have fun with it. But generally speaking, the build mode is terrible. Like I hate it. I can't stand getting into a gunfight with somebody and all of a sudden there's a mansion in front of me.
Fucking Trump Tower thrown up in front of you. Yeah, you get somebody like, one shot.
Dude, seriously?
Bro.
And then it's like a maze of like trying to deal with it. It's like, forget it.
Yeah,
like,
nope.
So no build. They introduced no build. And between games, I actually, if you remember, logged some time into it. Had some fun.
Yeah.
And I'll say this. I know you like the blackout thing, but if you're like me, where your luck generally is trash, like I don't get lucky. I don't, you tell me I win $1 million if I roll anything but snake eyes on a set of dice. Guess what's coming up? Snake eyes. And so finding good guns is usually not something that happens to me very often. And I think of all the second places that I got, most of them were me with a average or above average gun against somebody with like a gold gun. And it was just like, physically, I just couldn't keep up with it. And like that sort of randomness drives me nuts. So I like loadouts. I think putting loadouts in Warzone and being able to have guns that you are very familiar with and you understand how they work and you understand the damage profiles, whether you study them or you just intrinsically know them because you play with it so much. Huge advantage. I love that.
It's funny you mentioned loadouts, or we're talking about loadouts. I was listening to the Drop Shot today while I was working out, and I think it was Tanner. He made a really good point that I hadn't really thought about. I don't know what happened, but within the last 2 years, they have just gotten to where, and it was funny, he was like, yeah, maybe the person who was in charge of like the weapon balancing like left and went somewhere else, but like he's like, they suck at it. None of these guns are fun to use, and if you look at the first, even in Caldera, there were guns that were fun to use. We haven't had guns that are fun to use, and like several guns, the meta shifting every season, really since Caldera. If you really think about it, like they tried to adjust like the Cronin in Warzone 2, but like that nerf did jack to it. Like they had they were nerfing guns like
there was like 5 times.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think those boys are right. Like if I've made my peace with loadouts being in Warzone. It is what it is. Until there's another BR that doesn't have those that I would want to play, I'm gonna try to play Warzone. Despite all the other complaints that we have. Why? Because we're addicts. We really are.
We're addicts.
We need to go to a freaking meeting.
It's the best BR out there right now, right? Like
For
it really
us,
is. I mean, look, Apex is a movement game. It's not a shooter. It's a jumper. All right? It's a jumpy flyer game.
The shooting, the TTK on that's long. You got to hit your shots, fam.
Yeah, but the focus is on moving.
Well, I mean,
the focus is on using your movement and then it takes like 2 mags to down somebody. Every clip I see, it's like they're in a gunfight and then they pop a shield and then they do magic potions and then they reload and then they shoot again and then they have to reload again and then they get the kill. And it's like, cool. And meanwhile, they're bouncing around like a fucking jackrabbit, which is great. Like, and people like that mode, and I think that's great. It's great for them.
Yep.
But it's not a shooter, right? Call of Duty has traditionally always been a shooter, right? The shooting is the first and most important part of the game. Everything else is additional. A couple of Blackout games aside where they tried to be Apex and they were shit. Sorry, they were.
Talking about Black Ops?
Yeah, whatever.
3 and 4? Well, it was 3, actually. Well, no.
3.
So it was an Infinite War. Actually, the first one was Advanced Warfare. Then I believe it was Infinite Warfare. Then it was Black Ops 3.
Yeah, I don't remember the order they came out in, but those 3 games were the absolute worst games they've ever made. And I played the original game, and they're the worst games that were ever made.
I'd play them if they came out with another advanced movement Call of Duty. I'd play it.
I'd probably play Battlefield or Gray Man Warfare at that point.
Battlefield has to actually have something that's worth a shit. Hopefully, there's Gray Zone Warfare.
X Defiant is better than those 3 games, and it's not even out.
That's hilarious. Hey, by the way, did you see J-Rock's tweet? And at first glance, I kind of thought it was, but so he retweeted this deal where it shows somebody moving through, and it was Nuketown, right? It was Nuketown on Black Ops 3. He was like, "This looks like Apex to me."
Yeah.
At first glance, I'm like, "That shit is Apex," and then I'm looking, and I had to watch it again, and I'm like, no, that's Nuketown. Okay, that's because I didn't play Black Ops 3. I boycotted that game.
Yeah, for a good reason, because it was basically Apex, right? And so, look, Apex is a movement game, okay? And it's great for that. And it does it very well. But if you're someone who likes the shooting aspect, right, the gunfight aspect, the movement stuff is all fluff, right? Like, shooting your gun should be a satisfying experience. And that's something that Modern Warfare 2019 did to the utmost degree of excellence.
It was...
Every gun was different. Every gun had its quirks, had its feel, it had its sound.
Yep.
It was a different sound, right? And it made it fun. It had different iron sights, it had different look, it had different feel to it, it had different movement experience, right? Every gun was unique and was entertaining and was fun to use. But some of them were trash. But Dragunov, right? That was not fun to use for anybody.
That gun has never been good, I don't think, really, in any Call of Duty
ever,
to me.
Right. But it was still different.
Yeah.
It still felt unique, right?
So you didn't play Blackout, but they had this sniper rifle in Blackout called the Koshka. I swear to God, dude, it was every bit as bad as that Dragunov. But you know what? I know 2 people that could actually use it and kill with it. My buddy Hoops and Jigsy.
Right.
Jigsy kill with anything. It doesn't matter. That dude kill with anything. But that gun, legit, you can hit literally a barn if you're right out in front of it. I couldn't hit shit with that gun. So yeah, there was
Skill
the
issue.
Koshka in Black Ops 4 and Blackout.
Right, but they were all fun, right?
Yeah.
Here's the thing: the guns right now, they all feel the same. They look the same. They feel the same. Half of them are all in the same name, right? The Ram 9, the Ram 7, the TAC this, the TAC that, the TAC other. It's like I have to look down and see what gun did I actually pick up. Oh, I picked up the TAC M instead of the TAC 56 because the ground loot looks exactly the same. And when you shoot them, they feel exactly the same, except for one of them only shoots 1 bullet at a time instead of all of the bullets at a time. And that means you just die, right? Because it's like, I'm going to shoot you, and you click, shit, and then you're dead. So they need to fix, it isn't just the balancing, right? Because there's always been 1 or 2 guns that are just better than everything else, right? That's why we have a meta. But they need to make the guns feel better. They need to make a more variety of options to play with. And I think that's one of the biggest problems right now is that every gun feels the same. There's nothing exciting about it. Like,
Nope.
I'm running the BP50 as my sniper support because honestly, it's fun. It's actually a fun gun to use. It looks different. It feels different. It has better movement. It struggles at longer distances, but for a sniper support, I think it's a great gun. It is the best gun if you're not using it. I don't know why. And they're starting to do that with the aftermarket parts, right? But they're not all usable, or they come with significant drawbacks that limit them. So, I don't know, man. I don't know what they're doing right now.
When's the last time a Modern Warfare game didn't have an MP5 that had been viable at least at some point?
Always had an MP5.
This one doesn't.
Yeah.
They didn't bring one in. It's crazy to me that they didn't bring one in here.
Well, I'll tell you why. It's because they carry it over. So it does. It does. It has an MP5. It's just last year's MP5.
Yeah, it's Modern Warfare 2's MP5. But, and again, this goes back to what we were talking about, I think either yesterday or whatever on the phone. I still don't understand why they made this big production out of bringing these weapons over if they weren't going to make them usable. Like, they're trash. And, I mean, you do have to give credit because Sledgehammer has gone through and made some changes with some of the, the sway and the debris and, just the overall shake and the recoil. Mm-hmm. But still, man, they're not good. I tried to take the cast off into Warzone the other day, and even with that Choreo sight and the Zeman, it's still too much, man. It feels actually like that gun, the Cast-Off 7.62, felt better to me in Modern Warfare 2 than it does in this game. Just doesn't feel good to use. And that was my favorite gun in Modern Warfare 2.
Yeah, it definitely needs, I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. Like, hopefully we get a full press reset the end of this year.
Yeah.
Treyarch's new game.
Something. Well, you mentioned Treyarch's new game, and I was actually going to mention this earlier. We're talking about Urzikstan right now, and basically it hasn't gotten really any kind of TLC in probably 2 seasons at least.
Yeah.
So I reached out to my buddy, and the one thing that he did mention to me that I feel like I can share is there's a reason and a story behind everything that they're doing. So what that tells me is that perhaps Season 2 and Season 3 are about rebirth and resurgence, and then maybe 4, 5, and 6 going into Verdansk could be about Big Map BR and getting it right. Which actually, maybe I'm being optimistic and perhaps a bit naive, but maybe that's the case. Because I don't think, you got to remember too, we're dealing with Sledgehammer and Raven. We're not dealing with Infinity Ward, who just basically said screw it after season 4.5 and didn't do jack the rest of the way.
Well, I mean, how do I put it? So they're usually 2 or 3 seasons ahead in their development, right? So like, we're in season 3. They're probably wrapping seasons. Like, they're probably focused on season 6 development now, and like what the end of it, like all the major changes have been mapped out, right?
Sure.
Like they're already done. The heavy lifting is probably done on everything they're going to do, right? So if they're going to make changes to the map, it's already done. Like there's no more time to make decisions. I don't think. I think whatever they're going to do is already done. I think I would wager the majority of their development assets are already on the next game. They're already on Verdansk, which we know is coming back. They're already on whatever they're going to do in Rebirth Island, and whatever, if they're going to add. I don't know if they're going to. I assume they're going to make more small resurgence maps for next year. So I'm sure they're already developing something for that. Right now they're just going to be they're already settling into a maintenance mode. So I hope we have big map changes coming. I don't know if that's going to be the case or not. But one thing that they did add in is a stacking incentive. We touched on this already. They talked about, so you mentioned it. You asked what I thought about the drop with your squad mechanics.
Mm-hmm.
To be honest, I think it's an overall net negative. I don't think it's beneficial for the squad as a whole to have everyone drop right on top of each other. And I'll tell you why. Because the loot, there's not enough loot on the ground. There are not enough guns on the ground. And what happens is you end up running around with 2 snipers or a revolver and a pistol because there's nothing to pick up because you have 3 other people running around the exact same space looting as well. Part of what makes Resurgence in particular work is that you can drop all in the same POI, right? You can all drop on bio, but you don't have to drop together holding hands on the roof because there might only be 4 guns on the roof and someone's going to pick up 2 of them because they come out of the same chest, right? Or it's going to be a cat and a revolver, which great, that doesn't help me. So now if I got to go downstairs to get a gun and I ran into the team that's coming up from the bottom, right? I don't have a gun to fight with because there just aren't enough guns out there to pick up. And that's what happens when you drop together. Okay? When you drop spread across a POI, everybody has a chance to find a chest. Everybody has a chance to get a gun. And then you can come together and move and do whatever you want to do from that point on. You know, ammo's the other one, right? Like, you can pop open chests and you're going to pick up a ton of ammo, especially since you can stack ammo, right, in your backpack. Ammo and shields. So if you hit the ground and I hit the ground right after you and I'm behind you and you just sweep through the loot piles, I might get a gun. I might get a BP-50, which I'm great with. And I have 45 rounds in the mag, and if I have to fight, that's one guy I can fight. There's one guy I can fight before I'm out of ammo. And if there's multiple teams there, there's just nothing to pick up. Versus if everybody drops a bit apart from each other, there's more access to loot. You're not stepping over each other. You're not taking the ammo out of a chest that I open, right? Or I'm not doing that to you because I'm following you trying to find my own stuff. And that way everybody can get a good amount of stuff on drop. And that's the important part of early game on Resurgence. You have to drop in, you have to loot up quickly, and then you can get into the fight. If there's no loot to be had, or there's not enough loot to be had because there's too many people in the same area, then the early game sets you up for a miserable mid-game because you're just dying to people that did find loot. And I think that's the biggest problem with this new mechanic, is it encourages people to drop together, and then not everyone is going to get looted up properly. Not everyone's going to kit out, especially if you're hot dropping and there's a lot of players there. I'm
not looking at it in those terms, and the reason why is because I'm thinking about Big Map BR, because that mechanic is there too, or that function or whatever you want to call it is there too. So take, for instance, the car dealership area where I like to drop sometimes, depending on the flight path. I don't know what the distance is that they still give you credit for it, but I'm assuming it's got to be within X amount of meters.
Right.
So, and it's probably different for the Big Map BR than it is for for Resurgence. So to me, it doesn't matter. We always all try to drop within a building or 2 of each other anyway. So, and I know I was getting that XP last night because I damn sure wasn't getting it for kills because I was getting clapped. But so I don't see a huge problem with it. And I mean, honestly, if you look at Resurgence, the POIs are almost always hot anyway. So it's almost like a zero-sum thing, right? Like, somebody's going to get all the guns, and then somebody else isn't going to get any, and you're going to have to fight with your pistol. Like, you land and you're fighting with your pistol, especially if you land on roof, which I like landing on roof of bio. The other night, it sucked because we had like 4 teams land on there at the same time. I knocked one, but I wasn't able to finish him because I got ear-holed. But, big deal. It's just a way to give you XP and everything, but people are complaining about this mechanic, or I don't even know why I'm calling it a mechanic. They're complaining about this because guess what the topic of the last week has been?
It has been the dispersal of players and the solo experience that everyone is enjoying, right?
Stacking, yeah, it's stacking. Did you see that dude? He posts this long diatribe about team stacking, and my tweet response was, I'm like, bro, you are solo queuing into quads, and then you're complaining that they're playing as a team. Like, I'm like,
Don't do that.
There's a solos mode for you, bro. But see, this is the thing, and this is what I absolutely love Doug for, Modern Warzone. Somebody mentioned in his chat the other day, did you see this video?
I did. I saw both of them.
I fucking loved it, dude. Somebody mentioned in his video that you can't get your clips or whatever or your gameplay if people are stacking. And he's like, dude, 80 to 90% of the player base don't give a fuck about you and your content. Like, that's where, like, he's like, this is why, like, creators need to have these little side chats or whatever and talk in rather than throwing it out in the public, because the public doesn't care. Guys like you and I, we're creators, but we're not creators on that level, right? We're
not gameplay creators. Like, I'm not. Look, no one. I don't believe that anybody tunes into me for my gameplay. If you do, I apologize.
Me too.
Okay, I apologize. You tune in because we sit here and we talk about the game and we have opinions and things that people seem to like, right? And the ability to, like, break things down,
just to
and explain the game, right? And just because, you know, everyone tunes into Jay too because he's a cool guy, right? I don't know why you tune into me, but you tune into Jay because he's a cool guy.
Yeah, it ain't my gameplay.
So for us, it doesn't matter as much, right, in terms of creating content. But, you know, if you're a player whose entire gameplay loop is you clipping yourself wiping teams 1v4, right? Like, then I understand that that's an issue, but it doesn't mean that you need to be catered to, right? Like, you are not the majority of players. You are the minority of players. And so, yeah, what Doug said was spot on, right? And I think the quote, I pulled up the tweet about it, and the quote he said was, somebody put in his chat, stackers are making it a struggle for me to get gameplay as a content creator. I don't fucking care.
Yeah, right? I don't.
Nobody cares except for, like, the top 1%, maybe, that build their brand off of that kind of gameplay. All right? That's a you problem. And that's a problem. Like, don't get me wrong. It's not ideal. It's not great for you. And for people that have actually been able to make a living off of that, like, that's a problem, right? I understand that issue. But you are not the player that this game is for. Okay? It's not designed for you. It's not intended for you. And you're excelling at it, which is great. But the 80% of players who don't give a crap, they don't want to get better, they don't want to be top 250, they don't care about their KD, all right? And I don't think most people understand that this is how the majority of people play the game. Like, the guys that I used to play with, they are mad at me because I want to be a better player than I was 2 years ago, 3 years ago, right? That I want to put the effort in to be better, and that angers them to the point that they don't want to play with someone who wants to be better. They want to play with everyone who plays the same way, which is just, however, you know, just to have fun.
You can edit this out. Fuck them. I appreciate the fact that you want to get better, man. I mean, we've had that conversation several times, man.
And you know what? It's fine. It is what it is, and I respect the fact that they want to play the way that they want to play. Okay? The game is built for them. It really is. And I understand that they don't want to push every squad they see, that they don't want to be in every gunfight like I do. Okay? I get it. I'm totally okay with that. And the difference is I'm not screaming at the game saying, you're making my life more difficult. Because I understand that this is not, I am not like, I mean, this game is built for people who just want to have fun at the end of the day. And they've done a good job of giving avenues for people who want to make good gameplay, who want to be a top player. They're giving avenues for them to be successful. But it's not catered to you. Okay? You are not the majority of the player. You are not the one where the spend is coming from. You're not funding the game. All right? Everybody else is. So you can't get angry when the game is designed for everybody else and you suffer because you have a very narrow band of playstyle that you enjoy. Okay? Doug is 100% right on this.
Yeah. No, he is. But let me pose something else to you, too. And I tweeted about this. If you go into lobbies looking to farm bots and you're trying to get into bot lobbies, don't get mad when you're solo queuing into a quad lobby and people are doing bot things, as you would call them. If you're such a high skill player, which you probably are if you're trying to 1v4, go do that in a high skill game against other high skill players. You're literally complaining about the way people play the game, and it's the lowest skill ceiling game there is when it comes to shooters. It just is. Like, I don't understand this. Let people play the way they want to, man. I mean, yeah, I gave people shit about using riot shields and shotguns, and it makes me extremely petty and whatever. But at the end of the day, that's always been a part of Call of Duty. But guess what else has always been a part of Call of Duty? Stacking. It just is what it is, dude. Camping.
Look, here's the thing, right? Like, you can be frustrated at a play style that you run into. I had a tweet earlier about getting absolutely farmed by this team that was just literally like running around a little space together. Like literally they were just touching it. They're bumping each other. They're so close, just like little blah, 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 and like trying to even move past them was just a death sentence. And that frustrates me as someone who wants to try and improve, right? I don't want to sit with a group of people and just everybody shooting the same target and it's a roll of the dice who gets the kill. I want to go out and I want to fight somebody 1v1. 2v1, if that, right? If that's how it works out. I want to push my abilities and I want to get better. As someone pointed out, this is going back to another tweet from Doug, another part of his chat when he was talking about it, is look, if you stack, they said, if you stack in early game resurgence, you will never get better. It's just facts. And you know what? They don't want to get better. And that is okay. All right. It is also okay to be frustrated when you run into guys that are not individually good, but the four of them are insurmountable because they're playing as a team.
So
I'm going to point out, hold on, I'm going to roll back to you in a second, but Godric, who is a very good mouse and key player, very, very good player, has pointed out repeatedly that you can beat, that stackers are a liability, right? If you throw breacher drones at a 4-stack, guess what you're going to get? 4 bodies on the ground because they're so close to it, there's no room to move, right? It's a beatable play style, okay? And I think that's the thing that people don't think about. They want to beat them with movement and stim running and like YYing and spinning around. That's a big part of the complaints, is that you have a specific style of play that you like to play. And you want to use that to defeat multiple opponents. And the problem is stacking is the counter to your gameplay. Like that's why stacking has geared up to where it is, because people run into that more often. And so to defeat that, you play together closely, and 4 guys shooting 1 guy is usually going to result in a victory. Versus if you're spread apart and 1 guy can fight 1v1v1v1v1 because he's broken apart your team. Okay? So let's be clear. As a play style, it has a place. There's a reason that it exists. You can't, like, you can hate it all you want, just like you and I can't stand riot shields. Sorry, Rebirth, Rat, but get bent. We don't like running into you people. But it doesn't mean, like, it doesn't mean that the game should tilt away from enabling that. mentality among players, because it's like anything else, right? Like I don't like running into guys that are like spinning circles and YYing and doing all that stuff. Doesn't mean that I think the game should restrict your ability to do that. Definitely shouldn't restrict my ability to go on Prox Chat and tell you all the terrible things I'm going to do with your mother. But the idea that the game should restrict, should disable play styles is not it, right? And that's where the argument comes from. Yes, it's frustrating to run into, but it's also not. It exists for a reason, right? It exists because it's a counter to another play style. And so as long as that other play style is going to be pushed, that's the response. And it has always been that way through all of Warzone. That's how that's been the response to the game kind of catering towards the higher skilled players. Every time it raised health, stacking complaints went through the roof. Every time they increased movement, they put a movement gun in, stacking increased. Okay? And stacking is different from camping. I want to be clear. There are people who camp, and they will sit 27 bouncing Bettys deep into a little room with the four of them all in corners in the middle. That is camping. I'm talking about when the team together moves around and attacks as a group all at once. That, I think, is the play style that pisses people off. Like if you deal with campers, you just go around them, right? If you don't want to deal with them, and if you charge into a room blindly, knowing there's people in there, and you get smoked by four guys sitting in corners, that's a you problem, right? Are they dirtbags for doing it? Of course. That's why drill charges exist. So, yeah, that's my rate. That's my soapbox for the day.
Well, I posed to the Tactical Merc because he was talking about it too, and he's a higher tiered player, I guess. I haven't seen his gameplay, but I'm take his word for it. Think about this. If you're in lobbies with those type of people and you get farmed by a high skill player, right? And you're not stacking. We all know that the regain, even in Rebirth, buy stations are camped, loadouts are camped. The POIs are all hit. So what do you expect people to do? There's more of a risk for playing separately when you start playing in lobbies with people like that. So the lower skilled players, they have to stick together. It was an interesting
experience. It was an interesting experience when Rebirth dropped, because Rebirth was the redheaded stepchild of Warzone. If you go back on YouTube, pick any creator, and go back to December, January, February of 2021. Rebirth Island was new. It came out December 2020. And go through their content, and nobody did content on Rebirth unless it was to talk about how much that game mode sucked. No high skill players wanted to play Rebirth Island. They wanted to play Verdansk. Rebirth Island at that time was great. I think it was the best time in Warzone because it just wasn't very sweaty. Like, you didn't have that level of sweat. Like, and I don't think people remember accurately back in those days. But the best players in the game didn't touch that mode. They had no interest in it. I remember listening to Expel, and somebody in his chat was asking him, hey, when are you going to do content on Rebirth? And he just went off on how Rebirth sucked. And he had no interest in it. It was no skill. There was no fun in it, which at that time was true. And then somewhere around the time that the OTS 9 and the Car 98 kind of took over, right? And then you had the broken Mac 10, and you had a lot more shorter range, high movement options come into the game during Cold War. And people discovered that you could be really, really speedy and have a lot of fun, especially with a majority of console players. Back then, most players played on console, locked at 80 FOV, and you could really, really flex a PC advantage over that. And that's when Rebirth started to change, and it became more of the sweat fest, and Caldera dropped, and everybody hated that map so much they moved over and just played on Rebirth. So it is a different experience at the beginning than we face now. And at the beginning, people didn't stack. Like, you didn't run into 4 stacks roaming the map together. You might get guys camping. There were a couple of rooms that were great for camping. They would just sit there with claymores and bouncing betties everywhere, right? And I mean, same as everywhere, right? ATC and Verdansk was the same thing. You get like 10 claymores stacked up on the zip line. You remember that? Right? You just zip up and you just see these red lasers pointing at you, and you're just like, well, back to the gulag with me. So, Rebirth Island, without the stacking and without the super sweats, was a very different experience than Rebirth Island now. And the way that people play the game now is very different. It's very focused on either you're just in it to win the game, in which case stacking is going to be a primary goal because your odds go up significantly. But then you also have players like, it's a great place to get clips, right? It's a great place to finesse people. And so the way the map is laid out, it encourages that, right? There's a lot of ins and outs, like open spaces where you can actually use your movement. You don't get blocked by the player. You're not like shoved in a hallway. So you can use movement. You can be aggressive, and you can be successful at it. And at the same time, like, it also has the ability, you can stack up and you can counter that. So like, it's become polarized in the extremes of like, you're either a 4 stack mowing through people, or you're a high skill individual player mowing through people. And those two extremes combine, like, that's what we're facing, right? We've got the horseshoe effect of skill.
Yeah. It's I don't know. I don't think it's ever going to go away. I think that people are probably always going to complain about it, especially the people who are trying to get clips, and they want to farm bots, but when bots start doing bot things, they get pissed off. So it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to me, but it is what it is. And
do you remember the period of time in which, during Caldera, in which the meta was to run an RPG on Rebirth Island? I don't know if you were.
No,
you
I didn't play Rebirth. Like I said, I've never really cared for Resurgence mode that much. I still stuck it out on Caldera, believe it or not.
There is a point in which the best short range, the best close range weapon you could have was an RPG.
That's probably where Shady got his start. The real Shady, the real Habibi.
And it was great because, like, I distinctly remember on a regain, the only thing that my team, like, there were launchers everywhere and no guns, and the 4 of us, we were in part of prison. It's like it's the part of the cafeteria, like the kitchen. And I remember we were just stacked up in the kitchen because we were just on the run from everybody, trying to regain. Everybody had an RPG, and these 2 guys just hopped in, rose skin slide canceling through the window, and they just ate RPGs all day long. They were not happy in the death comms. It was wildly entertaining for us, but kind of again, it's the kind of cheesy mechanics that, like, it frustrates me. So, like, for me, I get frustrated with the stacking as much as I get frustrated with the super sweating, because I'm not, like, I don't like to sit there and be running with a group, right? I want to focus on my own skills, and I want to fight someone one-on-one if I can, because then it's my skill versus their skill, and that's where I believe the most learning comes from, the most advancement in my abilities will come from. But I don't get that opportunity very often because there's usually 2 or 3 other people on them. But when I run into guys that are super sweaty and I just get mowed down immediately by, right? I don't like that either, because there's nothing to learn from that. You're just getting mowed, usually before you even react or even see them. So I like the balance, and that I think for a lot of players that's true, where they like the balance, they like being able to fight one-on-one and not having to share it, right?
You know what I like though? I do like the fact that I'm seeing certain creators. Lucky Shamu, who's one of the best Rebirth players in the world, he's come out and said, you know what? Basically, and I'm paraphrasing, let people play how they want to play.
Mm-hmm.
It is what it is, kind of thing. Rolo, he's having a community stacking day, and he has trolled these.
But he always has a community stacking day. I've seen him with 20 guys together stacking.
That's hilarious. He's yeah, I really like that guy. Like, he's just funny as hell because
It is great.
he's a content creator, but his whole content is sticking it to other creators, and that's what's great. I love that. And
Oh yeah.
you know, Lucci. Oh man, did you see Lucci's rant?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, dude, I know it's not really on the stacking per se, but dude, it was chef's kiss on that one. I could not agree more.
Yeah.
With that rant.
Yeah, it was a good one. But, you know, at the end of the day, it's going to be what it's going to be. I mean, welcome to the game. You know, everybody gets to do what they want. And I think the best we can hope for is that the developers will, going forward, start adjusting things like ground loot to create benefits where you don't have to be as extreme in your play style.
Yeah.
I think that's what would make the majority of people more happy is if you reduce the extremes, so you're not like, oh, you're either a super YY ultra top 250 sweat, or you're 4-stacked in a corner, right?
We had that in Warzone 2, actually, if you think about it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
listen, nobody liked Warzone 2.
Well, listen, I am man enough to admit there were some good things about Warzone 2, actually. The mechanics I didn't really care for that much, but I mean, overall, Warzone 2 was a better experience than what this has been for me personally.
BR-wise, at least.
Yeah. I mean, I like the fact that this game doesn't punish you for certain things. Trying to jump through windows and stuff like that, and I feel like they
still dog shit.
They went wrong with that.
Trash.
But the matchmaking was better in Warzone 2. They actually paid attention to Al Mazrah. They did do some things to the map, those kind of things. Mm-hmm. We had big map Warzone ranked. Lot of good things. They dropped perk packages for the first time. You're able to get those, so that was really cool. If I remember correctly.
The perk packages.
Yeah. So, you know, just overall some good things out of Warzone 2. I think that a lot of people, including myself, have failed to remember. But stacking, like you said, is probably never going to go away. Trying to be a Giga Sweat wannabe, those are going to probably never go away. The get good kids. And it's so funny. I'll say this before we get to the kill of the week. I had some dudes basically talking shit to me on Twitter and one of my tweets. I can't remember which one, but I was just like, all right, post your stats in your gameplay or shut the fuck up.
Nice.
Never got really a response. And I was like, yeah, that's what I thought. You know, like at the end of the day, that's the one thing that I can't stand about this community, dude. If you have a different opinion about something or you dislike something, you must be a trash can. You're a bot. You suck. Da-da-da-da-da.
Oh, come on. The best way to settle a disagreement about things like gameplay mechanics is to 1v1 someone, and whoever wins is right.
Oh, I had somebody that was talking trash to Drade. Did you see that?
I had someone doing that to me. And like him and I think Adam got into it. Strigler got into it. And I just started laughing at him. But I think that it is the dumbest solution to a disagreement I've ever come across. Like I run into it and I'm just like, why?
I just roll my eyes. I'm like, you've got little D energy, bro.
Yeah. But speaking of little D energy, none of that here because we have kill of the week.
Yep. I actually do have one now that I think about it.
Go.
So I was on Urzikstan. Drake actually clipped this, so I can send this over to you. We can put it in this video. I was on Urzikstan. I was on Bounty, and I wiped the Bounty team.
Nice.
It wasn't 1v3. I mean, my guys did a little bit of damage, but I was able to kill the Bounty team. Basically, I downed the first guy. I went and hid, but didn't hide behind a wall, but I was behind a wall trying to plate up, and then I went back into the fight. There was another guy coming right down the hill towards me. I beamed him up. And actually, no, I took 2 of the 3 out. I didn't take the third one out, but I did get a 2-piece out of that. And
nice.
I'm lagging everywhere.
Where the fuck did he come from? I was just there.
Fuck you.
I fucking turn around and all of a sudden I got 2 people in my pocket.
Oh my god.
They'll need to survive to redeploy.
You fucked up, buddy.
The enemy is no longer tracking you. You lost.
There's 2 slowed out.
Squad mate.
You know I've always hated the bounties because I've always felt like it was one-sided and only one side benefited from it. Like you don't have a direction on where they're coming from. The only thing you could hope for is that you have a UAV when you go on 2-threat. So to be able to kill, and that's actually happened a couple times lately. Is I've been on bounty, and we've been able to kill the bounty team. So that's nice. But I'll send you the clip.
That's you being hunted. You being hunted, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Outstanding.
How about
Always
you?
good to turn the tables. I actually had quite a few, all Rebirth. That's all we've played this week. Have quite a few, but I have one that just takes the cake of just spectacular. I put this on Twitter earlier, so you may have already seen it. It'll be at the end of this video too. But I was I was on Factory on Nova on the catwalks. So you have the little you come up on the one side of it. There's a little zip up to a catwalk, and then you can run the catwalk down towards you're going in the direction of Bio. And I get up there, and we have the gas behind us pushing in. We have just regained, so we're kind of a little scattered. And I turn the corner, and then there are smokes going off, and I get just blasted. So I'm down to like 1 HP. I run back, start plating. My teammates have come up the zip behind me. They turn around the corner. One of them gets downed. The other one gets broken. I get my plates back in, and the gas is now upon us. And I pull out a throwing knife, and I turn the corner, and it is just smoke all the way down the catwalk. I can't see anything. I don't know where they are, but I'm just anticipating if someone's waiting to hold us, where they're going to be. Point, and as soon as some shots start coming in, let it go, get the down. We sweep through. Teammate revives. Everybody gets through. We ended up winning that game, if memory serves. But it was just up there. This was with Lipe and Buby Doctor and another guy, another friend of theirs. But yeah, the old throwing knife, just through the smoke, just anticipation play. And then last night I had a game where I put the stalker to work and just kept the team constantly on the regain, and it was glorious.
I had a guy that I quick scoped on top of the prison at point blank range. Like he's just running at me. I was like, "Bop!" And I got him. That was pretty cool. That was
nice.
The one night that we played. So yeah, I'll send you a couple of those clips if you want to put those on there or whatever.
Yeah, send me your clip of the bounty. I'll put them in. And for everybody not watching on YouTube, you'll find them on our Twitter page.
Yep.
But with that, Jay, As always, it's been a pleasure. I appreciate getting to do this podcast with you.
Yeah, man.
My
Me
illustrious duo here. We got to play again soon.
Yes.
Thank you, everybody, for sticking around. I, of course, am SuboneKD with the ever illustrious J007tv, and we will catch you on the next time. This has been SuboneKD, along with J007tv and the Slightly Above Average Gaming Podcast. We're logging off now, so we'll see you next time.